My name is Alara Middleton, and I'm 17 years old. At 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday, my stepbrother stabbed me. People love to say that family is everything, like it's a promise. But nobody warns you that sometimes the people who share your roof are the ones who'd rather see you buried under it than admit they're wrong. I didn't understand that fully until the knife. The warning signs, though? They'd been screaming at me for months. The night everything started to tilt, we were at the dinner table. The overhead light buzzed faintly, and the roast chicken smelled like lemon and garlic. It should have been a normal family scene. My mom, Linda, chatting about work, my stepdad, Philip, scrolling his phone between bites, Brandon, my stepbrother of 2 years, pretending to be the golden boy. Except my stomach was in knots because my room had been wrong. Again. My prescription sleep meds are missing pills, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. And my dresser drawer was open, the one where I keep my journal. Mom didn't even look up at first. When she finally did, she sighed like I'd told her the Wi-Fi was out. "Oh, Lara, you're being paranoid again," she said, waving her fork. "Brandon was just looking for his phone charger. You probably grabbed some pills and forgot. You've been stressed lately." "I didn't forget," I said, jaw tight, and my journal was open to a page I didn't leave it on. Brandon gave me that easy smile that always melted my mom's defenses. If charm were a weapon, it'd be his favorite. "I knocked 3 times, Elle," he said. "You were blasting music like always. I bumped into your dresser in the dark looking for an outlet. Chill. It's not that deep." There it was, an explanation for everything, a reason, an excuse. Philip finally set his phone down, fixing me with that stern stepdad look. "Ilara, you need to stop being so suspicious," he said. "We're a family unit now. Families trust each other. No more of this drama." The word drama landed heavier than the mashed potatoes on my plate. Drama meant I was the problem. Drama meant they were already choosing him. I stared at my water glass, watching the ice clink against the sides. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out the TV in the living room. "Why is it only my stuff that goes missing?" I asked quietly. "Why is it only my door he walks through?" Nobody answered. Mom just changed the subject to her coworker's baby shower. Brandon smirked at his plate. Philip went back to his phone. Later, that conversation would replay in my head like a broken record, especially when I was lying in a hospital bed, counting stitches. But right then, it just felt like one more time I wasn't believed. The next afternoon, I sat across from my best friend Valerie at our usual booth in the Riverside Diner. The place smelled like coffee, syrup, and years of secrets soaked into vinyl. A waitress dropped off a plate of apple pie between us, steam curling up like a cartoon. "Your mom always takes his side," Valerie said, stirring her iced latte so aggressively the spoon clinked against the glass. "It's like she married Philip and decided you were optional." I watched a family laugh at the booth across from us. A mom, a dad, 2 little kids stealing fries off each other's plates. It hurt to look at them. "Yesterday I counted my meds," I said quietly, "and they were short. When I brought it up, Mom suggested I was taking them and blacking it out, like I'm losing time or something." Valerie's hazel eyes went wide. "That is textbook manipulation, Alara. That's literally gaslighting. She's rewriting your reality while you're still standing in it." Brandon said maybe I miscounted. Philip nodded, like Brandon suddenly has a degree in pharmacology from Johns Hopkins. I let out a humorless laugh. "I don't know what to do. I feel crazy in my own house." My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Noah flickered on the screen. "Noah, how's the diner summit going? You okay?" I smiled faintly and texted back under the table. "Me. Same horror movie, different day. I'll call you later." Valerie leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Have you thought about getting a lock for your door? Like a real one? Not just that little push button." "I have," I said. "Philip has this rule. No locked doors in my house because families don't hide things from each other." I dropped my voice into his deep, authoritative tone on that last part. "That's not a rule," Valerie muttered. "That's a red flag wearing a world's best dad mug." She tapped her nails on the table, thinking hard. "What about some kind of security, like a camera? If he's really going into your room, we need proof that even your mom can't ignore." I took a long sip of my cappuccino, feeling the foam coat my tongue while my brain raced. "I still have my old iPhone from sophomore year," I said slowly. "The one with the cracked corner. It still works." Valerie's eyes lit up. "Perfect. You could set it up as a hidden camera. Prop it up on your bookshelf, plug it in, hit record. If Brandon is doing what you think he's doing, then we'll have evidence," I finished, my heartbeat picking up. Not from caffeine. From fear. from Hope. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Noah. Noah. Seriously, Elle, if something feels wrong, it probably is. Please don't just swallow it. Me. I'm not. Val has a plan. We'll explain tonight. Do it, Valerie urged. Tonight. Something about all this feels wrong. Really wrong. Looking into her worried eyes, I realized something simple and awful. The only people who believed me didn't live in my house. That night, I set up the camera. I propped my old iPhone on my bookshelf, angled toward my bed and desk, screen dimmed, charging cable snaking down behind a stack of books. I tested it twice, watching the little red recording light blink, then vanish as the screen went dark. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. Let's see who's crazy. I barely slept. Every creak in the hallway felt like footsteps. Every shadow under my door looked like it might grow hands. 3 days later, at 1:47 a.m., the camera caught him. Brandon slipped into my room, the hallway light framing him like something out of a nightmare. He went through my backpack. He took cash from my wallet. Worse, he pulled open my journal and flipped through pages I'd written with my guard down. Pages about grief, anxiety, and the way I felt like a stranger in my own family. Then he stood at the foot of my bed, and he watched me sleep. Not for a second, not for a joke, for almost 7 minutes. When I showed the video to Valerie the next day at her apartment in the Meadowbrook complex, her hands shook as she held my phone. Ilara, this is beyond disturbing, she whispered. He's not just snooping, he's fixated. You need to show your mom, and Philip, immediately, like tonight. You really think they'll believe me? I asked. Even with video? They have to, she said. His face is literally right there. There's no talking his way out of this. My phone lit up with a call from Noah. I stepped into the tiny hallway, answered in a whisper. Hey, how bad is it? He asked. No small talk, just concern. That was Noah. It's bad, I said, throat tight. We caught him on camera, in my room, watching me sleep. There was a beat of silence. Elle, he said softly, I'm so sorry. Listen, whatever happens when you show your mom, you text me. If it gets ugly, I'll drive over. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. Something in my chest loosened. Okay, I said, thank you. I hung up, squared my shoulders, and told Valerie, I'll show them after dinner. Dread pooled in my stomach like ice water, but under it, a small flame of something else flickered. Resolve. That evening, I connected the old iPhone to the living room TV while Mom and Philip settled into their leather sectional. The evening news flickered across the screen, talking about storms and elections like the world was normal. What is this about, Ilara? Mom sighed, annoyed. We were about to watch Yellowstone. There's something you both need to see, I said. It's about Brandon. Philip's jaw tightened. His posture went rigid. If this is more of your accusations against my son. Just watch, I said, hitting play before courage could abandon me. The video filled the 55-inch screen. Timestamp. Brandon's face. His hands in my things. His body hovering at the edge of my bed while I slept. Completely vulnerable. The silence afterward was suffocating. This proves absolutely nothing, Philip said finally, voice cold. He was obviously looking for something you borrowed and didn't return. In my backpack, I shot back. In my wallet? In my journal? What possible explanation is there for standing over me for 7 minutes while I sleep? Mom looked uncomfortable, but her words still cut clean. You've always been jealous of the attention Brandon gets from Philip, she said. This is manipulative, Ilara. Setting up hidden cameras to frame him? That's disturbing. My head spun. Did you watch the same video I just showed you? I demanded. He's stealing from me. He's reading my private thoughts. He's watching me sleep. We're done discussing this, Philip said. Standing so fast the remote clattered to the floor. He towered over me, 6 feet of authority and anger. Hand over that phone. There will be no more surveillance in my house. My house, not ours. His. I clutched the phone tighter. For a second, I thought he might actually grab it from my hands. Mom didn't stop him. She just watched me like I was the one on trial. Later, I texted Valerie from my room. Me. They didn't believe me. Said I'm jealous. Said I'm manipulating them. Valerie. That's it. Pack a bag. Come here tomorrow night. We'll figure this out together. I hesitated, then texted Noah. Me. They sided with him. Again. Noah. I'm so sorry. I meant it, Elle. If you need me, I'll come get you. You don't have to stay there. I stared at my half-zipped backpack on the floor, heart pounding in my ears. I wish I could tell you I left that night, that I believe my own fear more than their denial. But the truth is, I told myself I could handle one more night under that roof. Valerie's last text glowed on my screen. Valerie, promise me you'll come tomorrow. I typed back. I promise. I never made it to Valerie's place. If I had left that night, none of what I'm about to tell you would have happened. At least that's what I used to think. Now I'm not sure the universe ever intended to let me walk away quietly. The night I was supposed to go to Valerie's, the house felt wrong. Too still, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I packed a small duffel bag anyway. Jeans, 2 t-shirts, underwear, my favorite hoodie, toothbrush, phone charger. I tucked my journal into the front pocket as an afterthought, then froze. The idea of Brandon's fingers turning those pages again made my skin crawl. I pulled the journal back out and shoved it under my pillow instead. I texted Valerie, me. I'll come over tomorrow after school. Mom's in a mood. Don't want to start a war tonight. Valerie, I don't like this, but okay. Text me in the morning. And Noah, me. Staying here tonight. Leaving tomorrow. Promise. Noah, I hate this, but I trust you. Keep your phone charged. If anything feels off, call. I don't care what time it is. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my room lit only by the soft glow of my alarm clock. 1:32 a.m. The house creaked. Pipes sighed. Somewhere outside, a car passed, headlights sweeping faintly across my curtains for a second and then vanishing. I tried to slow my breathing. You're okay. Just one more night. Then you're gone. Valerie's. Safe. Noah a short drive away. I must have drifted off because the next thing I remember is waking up to something that didn't belong in my room. A sound, soft, wrong. The whisper of fabric, the faint scrape of something against wood. My eyes flew open. For a fraction of a second, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Brandon, standing over my bed. The hallway light was off, but there was enough glow from the street outside to catch the edge of his face, the pale curve of his cheekbone, the gleam of something in his hand. At first, my sleep-fogged brain tried to make it small. Maybe he had a flashlight. Maybe this was another creepy, boundary-crossing moment I could still escape with just therapy. Then the flashlight caught the light. Steel, a kitchen knife. The pain came before the scream. White-hot, blinding pain exploded in my left side, like my ribs had been set on fire from the inside out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. There was just pressure and heat, and the sick, wet slide of something pulling back from my skin. I heard myself gasp, a sound like an animal caught in a trap. Brandon leaned closer. I could smell his cologne, cheap and sharp. His whisper brushed my ear. I know what you're trying to do to me, he hissed. It's not going to work. Then he was gone. The world tilted. My hands flew to my side and came away slick and warm. The room blurred, swimming in and out of focus. I tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. The pain flared so bright my vision went white at the edges. Call someone. Move. Do something. My phone was on the nightstand. I fumbled for it with shaking fingers, knocking it to the floor. It hit the hardwood with a crack. I almost sobbed. I don't remember dialing, just the sound of my own breath and the operator's voice asking for my address. I remember saying, my stepbrother, he stabbed me, over and over, like if I stopped, my heart would too. The next moments were flashes. The distant wail of sirens, red and blue lights strobing against my ceiling. A paramedic's hands pressing hard against my side, telling me to stay with them, to keep my eyes open. Mom's face floating above me in the hallway, lips parted in shock, but her eyes more confused than horrified. Elara, what did you do? She breathed. Not what happened, not, oh my God, are you okay? What did you do? Then the ambulance swallowed me. Bright lights, antiseptic smell, straps tightening across my chest. Someone shouted vitals. I tried to focus on the rhythm of the wheels under me. I remember one single clear thought cutting through the chaos. If I die, they'll probably still say I did this to myself. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed at Clearwater Memorial. At least that's what they told me. 3 days. I only remember flashes in between, voices I couldn't quite place, cold stethoscope metal on my skin, a nurse adjusting my IV. The first time I fully surfaced, the room was dim, afternoon light bleeding around the edges of the blinds. Machines beeped softly beside me, displaying numbers I didn't understand. My left side throbbed in time with my heartbeat. Hey there, a man's voice said gently. Welcome back. I turned my head slowly and saw a man in his 40s sitting in a vinyl chair by my bed. His dark hair was threaded with gray, and his eyes were the kind that noticed everything and gave nothing away. I'm Detective Ramirez, he said. Riverside County PD. Do you remember what happened, Elara? My mouth felt like sandpaper. My voice cracked. My stepbrother, Brandon, You're safe right now, he said. Take your time. Safe. The word felt foreign. I swallowed, winced, then tried again. I woke up. He was standing over my bed. He had a knife. He said he knew what I was trying to do to him. Then my hand twitched toward my bandaged side. He stabbed me. Ramirez nodded slowly, jotting something in a small notebook. And before that, had there been issues between you and Brandon? I showed my mom and stepdad a video, I said. He'd been going into my room, taking things, watching me sleep. I caught him on my old phone. I connected it to the TV. They saw it. What was their response? He asked, voice neutral, but his jaw tightening just slightly. They said I was jealous, I whispered, that I was manipulating them. Philip said the video proved nothing. Mom called it disturbing that I'd set up a camera. They defended him. Again. Ramirez's eyes darkened. Your parents have suggested you might have done this to yourself, he said carefully, that you inflicted the wound for attention. The words landed like shards of glass in my throat. Of course they did, I said hoarsely, because if they admit Brandon's dangerous, they have to admit they ignored it. He watched me quietly, giving me room. Have you ever hurt yourself before, Alara? He asked. Any history of self-harm? I shook my head, as much as my stitches would allow. No, I see a therapist. Dr. Harper. Since my dad died in a construction accident 5 years ago. She'll tell you. I've told her everything. About Brandon, about the meds, about the camera. We've already spoken to her, Ramirez said. She's on her way now with documentation. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Elle! Valerie's voice cracked as she rushed to my bedside. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her curls were pulled into a messy bun like she'd given up on pretending she slept. They finally let me up. I've been in that waiting room for hours. She glanced at Ramirez, then back at me. I'm so sorry, she whispered, gripping my fingers carefully. I should have dragged you out of that house the second we saw that video. You're not responsible for what he did, Ramirez said firmly. The responsibility is his, and there are serious questions about who enabled him. Her mom and Philip are still defending him, Valerie said, turning to the detective, anger breaking through her fear. They were telling people in the waiting room that she did this to herself, that she's unstable, that she's jealous because Brandon gets all the attention. Ramirez's jaw clenched. Those statements are being documented, he said. We're building a case, Miss Jennings. Rodriguez, Valerie corrected automatically, then flushed. Sorry, habit. And we'll need all the pieces, he continued, looking back at me. Alara, has Brandon ever directly threatened you before this? In words? Actions? Not directly, I said. It was always subtle. Things moved in my room, items disappearing, that video of him watching me sleep. I swallowed hard. There was this one time, about 2 months ago. He passed me in the hallway and whispered, "Be careful." Just those 2 words. But the way he said it... Did you tell your parents? Ramirez asked. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I told them everything, I said. They told me I was being dramatic, that I was making Brandon uncomfortable with my accusations. A gentle knock sounded at the door. A woman in her late 30s stepped in, carrying a leather portfolio. Her expression was calm, but her eyes softened when she saw me. Hi, Alara, she said. It's Dr. Harper. May I come in? Relief flooded me so fast my eyes stung. Yeah, I croaked. Please. She stepped closer, nodding respectfully to Ramirez. Detective, as we discussed, I've brought my notes from the last 18 months of sessions. With Alara's permission, of course. She looked at me, giving me an out. You have it, I said quickly. Give them everything. Thank you, she said softly. To Ramirez, she added, Alara has no history of self-harm. None. What she does have is a documented, escalating pattern of fear regarding her home environment, especially her stepbrother. Ramirez accepted the folder. This will help strengthen our case considerably, he said. Case. The word made what happened feel both bigger and more distant, like my life had been picked up and dropped into a filing system. After they stepped just outside my room to talk, Valerie dragged her chair closer, her voice low and fierce. Your mom and Philip tried to come up earlier, she said. The nurses blocked them. They were telling anyone who would listen that you did this to yourself, that you've always been jealous of Brandon since Linda remarried. Rage burned through the pain medication fog, hot and sharp. They're trying to control the story, I said. Make me the villain. Dr. Harper heard some of it, Valerie said. That's why she rushed here. She's not letting them rewrite this. My phone, my new one, sat on the tray beside my bed. Valerie picked it up, checked the screen. Noah's texted like 20 times, she said, mouth quirking. Do you want me to call him? Yeah, I whispered, please. She hit dial and put it on speaker. Elle, Noah's voice came through, rough with worry. Is she okay? I'm right here, I said, tears finally spilling over. I'm okay, or I will be, eventually. There was a long exhale on his end. I'm coming up as soon as visiting hours open, he said. You don't have to go through any of this alone anymore, okay? For the first time since waking up with a knife in my side, something small and fragile flickered in my chest. Hope. And just beneath it, something else. If Brandon thought stabbing me would silence me, he'd made a very big mistake. Pain teaches you strange things. How to breathe in shallow, careful sips. How to brace your ribs before you laugh or cry. How to listen to the rhythm of your heartbeat through layers of gauze and tape. But the strangest thing pain teaches you is how quiet the world becomes when the truth finally starts climbing out of the dark. 3 days after Detective Ramirez first interviewed me, he returned, this time with a partner. A woman stepped into my hospital room wearing a charcoal pantsuit and a no-nonsense expression. Her dark hair was pulled into a low twist, and she carried a slim tablet under her arm. I'm Detective Chen, she introduced herself, offering a small nod. We've been assigned jointly to your case. I know you've already spoken with Detective Ramirez, but we'd like to update you on what we've found. Ramirez stood at her side, arms crossed, eyes sharp. My stomach tightened. Updates meant evidence, and evidence meant this nightmare was real enough to document. First, Chen said, we interviewed several students at Grant Valley High. 3 came forward with information about Brandon. Valerie, who had arrived early that morning and was now sitting cross-legged on the recliner beside my bed, perked up instantly. Oh, this should be good, she muttered. Chen tapped her tablet. One student, Tyler Simmons, reported that Brandon bragged about taking your prescription medication, not just for fun, to sell. My breath hitched. My doctors had already told me the combination of missing pills and the stabbing wound made self-infliction impossible. But hearing that he'd been stealing my meds to sell them twisted something deep inside me. He also bragged, Chen continued, about messing with you, said you were easy to rattle, told his friends that watching you sleep made him feel powerful. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. Valerie's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Ramirez stepped forward. We also searched Brandon's locker at school. We found your missing sleep medication, along with items stolen from 4 other students, wallets, AirPods, a smartwatch. I blinked, stunned. He was stealing from everyone? Patterns of entitlement often start small, Chen said. They can escalate quickly. Escalate, like from theft to stalking to attempted murder. My throat felt too tight to speak. Ramirez cleared his throat and continued. There's more. The knife used in your attack was recovered in the outdoor garbage bin at your house. My breath froze. The knife. The one that had carved a 7-inch wound into my side. We sent it for analysis, Ramirez said. Brandon's fingerprints are all over the handle, no one else's. I let out an involuntary sound, half sob, half sigh, a cracked kind of relief. Not because I wanted him to be guilty, but because I needed someone else, anyone else, to see what I'd seen all along. Valerie whispered, They can't talk their way out of this now, Elle. They just can't. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when Detective Chen exchanged a knowing glance with Ramirez, I braced myself. Your parents, Chen said gently, are still insisting you planted the items in Brandon's locker. That Brandon only watched you sleep because he was checking on you. They also claim the fingerprints got on the knife because he helped with dinner earlier that night. My stomach dropped. Of course. Of course they'd twist even the science. They're doubling down, Valerie said bitterly, sinking deeper into her chair. Unbelievable. Not entirely unexpected, Ramirez added. Sometimes in households with strong favoritism patterns, denial becomes the default coping mechanism. But the evidence is building, Alara, and it's building in your favor. It should have comforted me. Instead, it made me want to cry. Because the more evidence piled up, the more obvious it became. My own mother would never choose me over him, not even to save my life. Dr. Harper swept into the room an hour later, her usual calm aura settling over us like a warm blanket. She carried a thick manila folder, thicker than I'd ever seen it. This, she said, placing it carefully on my lap table, is 18 months of documentation. Session notes, emotional patterns, reports of escalating concerns at home. With your permission, Alara, I'd like to submit this to the prosecution team. My voice cracked. Please, send everything. She nodded softly. These notes establish your long-term emotional stability. They also outline clear signs of fear, boundary violations, and psychological manipulation at home. They will help the DA understand that your concerns about Brandon didn't appear out of thin air. They've been building for months. I could feel Valerie watching me, pride and heartbreak warring on her face. Then my phone buzzed again on the side table. Noah. I unlocked it. Noah. Visiting hours start in 15 minds. I'm downstairs with coffee. Don't panic. It's just me. My chest tightened, in a good way. Me. Bring the sugary latte. The legal system is exhausting. Noah. Already got it. Sit tight. Valerie nudged me with her foot. He's so in love with you. I glared at her through a smile. Stop. I won't, not ever. Before I could argue, a soft knock sounded at the door. Noah stepped inside, wearing jeans, a hoodie, and the kind of expression that looked like he'd punch a door if it meant I'd feel safer. His eyes landed on me, bandaged and pale against the hospital pillows, and his breath visibly hitched. Oh, Elle. He crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped just short of touching me, as if waiting for permission. It's okay, I whispered. He leaned close and brushed a kiss against my forehead. Gentle, slow, careful. The kind of kiss that made my chest ache for entirely different reasons. Valerie fake coughed. Hi, Noah. She's fine. I've been here all week. You're welcome. Noah grinned at her. Thank you for keeping her alive. Valerie flipped her hair dramatically. Someone had to. Even Dr. Harper cracked a small smile. For a few minutes, the room warmed. Almost felt like a normal teenage moment. Boyfriend, best friend, therapist, coffee. But it didn't last. Because then Ramirez returned with a new folder under his arm. A thicker, heavier one. We're moving forward with charges, he announced. Assault with a deadly weapon, multiple theft counts, potential stalking charges depending on the DA's interpretation of the video. My stomach clenched. Do you think my parents will ever admit what he did? Ramirez held my gaze, steady and honest. Sometimes the truth is too painful for people to face, especially when it means admitting they failed the child who needed them most. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was the answer I'd expected. Detective Chen added, the more they deny, the more they implicate themselves, for obstruction, for endangerment. The DA is already taking note. My fingers tightened around my blanket. They still choose him, I whispered, even now. Valerie's voice softened. That's on them, Elle, not on you. Noah moved closer, his hand hovering near mine, careful not to touch the IV. You're not alone anymore, he said. We'll get through this. We. The word hit me harder than the pain meds, because for the first time in months, I realized something quietly, painfully true. I didn't want to go back to that house, not ever. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to. The day I was released from Clearwater Memorial felt almost unreal. The nurse wheeled me through the automatic doors into the bright Arizona morning, the sun flaring across the parking lot like it was painting the world brand new. Except I didn't feel new. I felt stitched together, physically, emotionally, held in place by threads thinner than I wanted to admit. Valerie stood waiting beside her mom's SUV, practically vibrating with nervous energy. Okay, she's here, she announced like I was a celebrity being escorted down a red carpet. Gently, she's got like 1,000,000 stitches. It's 43, I muttered, wincing as I slowly stood. Not 1,000,000. Feels like 1,000,000, she shot back. And then there was Noah, leaning against his car a few spaces away, hands in his pockets, watching me like he was afraid to blink and lose me again. He walked over as Valerie helped me into the SUV. You good? He asked softly, keeping his voice low so her mom wouldn't overhear. I nodded, though it wasn't fully true. I will be. He brushed a strand of hair behind my ear with the gentlest touch imaginable. Text me when you're settled, he said. If you're up for it, I'll come by tonight. Just sit with you. No pressure. That should not have made my chest feel warm. But it did. It burned. In a quiet, steady way. A way that made me wonder how long I'd been craving gentleness, without even knowing it. Valerie's home felt like a different universe from mine. Warm lighting, soft blankets on the couch, pictures of her and her mom on the wall, laughing, hugging, living. Her mom settled me into the guest room with extra pillows and peppermint tea, fussing just enough to feel comforting, but not suffocating. You're safe here, sweetie, she said, brushing my hair gently before leaving the room. Stay as long as you need. Safe. I didn't realize how foreign that word had become until it made my throat tighten. Valerie plopped onto the bed beside me, looking determined. Okay, ground rules. You rest. You heal. You eat snacks. You complain frequently, so I can insult your enemies more efficiently. Deal? Deal, I said, smiling for the first time that day. But the peace didn't last. because my phone, charged fully for the first time since the stabbing, lit up with missed calls. 13 missed calls from Mom, 7 from Philip, 4 from home, the landline I used to know like my own heartbeat. A sinking feeling filled my stomach. Valerie leaned over my shoulder. Oh, absolutely not. Block them. I can't, I whispered. Not yet. You can, and you should. They don't get access to you after they tried to rewrite reality while you were bleeding out. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed closure, or maybe I needed to hear it from them one last time, that they chose him over me, on purpose. I pressed play on the first voicemail. Philip's voice blasted through the speaker, angry and clipped. Elara, drop these ridiculous charges. You're destroying this family. You understand that, don't you? Valerie rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, sure, you almost died, but they're the victims. The next voicemail was Mom. Sweetheart, please call me. Brandon is devastated. You're creating chaos for all of us. Please stop this before it goes too far. I felt something inside me crack. She still didn't acknowledge what happened. Not the knife, not the blood, not the hospital. Just the chaos I caused. Valerie grabbed the phone. Okay, nope, that's enough. You're not listening to another one without supervision. Let's call Detective Ramirez if they keep harassing you. I should probably answer at least one call, I murmured. No, Valerie said instantly. Absolutely not. But the phone rang again. Mom. Valerie glared at it like she could vaporize it with sheer will. Put it on speaker. I want evidence. My heart pounded as I hit answer. Hello, I said stiffly. Elara, thank God. Mom's voice was tight, strained, but not with worry. This has gone far enough. You need to tell everyone the truth. I am telling the truth, I said. Brandon stabbed me. We both know that isn't what happened, she insisted, tone sharpening. Brandon would never hurt anyone. He's a good boy. Valerie muttered. Oh, I'm going to hit something. Mom, I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. There is video of him robbing me and watching me sleep. There is a knife with his fingerprints. There are students who heard him brag. Brandon admits he made mistakes taking your things, she said quickly. But this? Stabbing? Elara, you're ruining his entire future. So my life is worth less than his college prospects, I asked. Her silence was answer enough. Philip's voice boomed in the background. She's lying like she always does. She's jealous, Linda. Philip, please. But Mom didn't tell him to stop. She never told him to stop. Elara, she continued, we're willing to forgive you for all of this, but you must drop the charges. Brandon is just a kid. Forgive me for being stabbed. Valerie's hand tightened around mine so hard it almost hurt. I'm not dropping anything, I said, a new steadiness forming in my chest. He belongs in custody. Philip seized the phone. Listen here, you ungrateful little... Valerie cut him off, her voice loud and clear. Is that a threat? Because I'm recording this entire call on my laptop. Silence. Thick. Tense. Then Mom again, voice trembling now. We just want our family back together. You chose your family, I whispered. And it wasn't me. I ended the call. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Valerie wrapped an arm around my shoulders. You did the right thing. But I felt hollow, grieving a family that had never really existed. The next afternoon, Detective Ramirez stopped by Valerie's house to check on me. He listened to the recording, nodding grimly. This call shows coercion, emotional manipulation, and attempts to obstruct justice, he said. It will help our case. Our case, I repeated softly, because now it wasn't just mine. It belonged to the truth, to the law, to everyone Brandon had ever hurt, to everyone my parents had ever silenced. Your courage is the reason this is moving forward, Ramirez added. I didn't feel courageous. I felt stitched together, tired and bruised. But something inside me had shifted. A choice had solidified with painful clarity. I wasn't going back. Not to that house, not to that version of family, not to the lies they expected me to live inside. I was choosing myself, for the first time in my life. The Jefferson County Courthouse wasn't just a building. It was an institution. Marble columns, echoing hallways, doors so heavy they felt designed to intimidate. Maybe that was the point. Valerie held my arm as we walked inside, careful of my healing stitches. Noah stayed on my other side, close, but respectful. A steady presence that grounded me with every breath I took. His fingers brushed mine occasionally, intentional, but featherlight. Like he was offering strength without forcing it on me. You don't have to look at him, Noah murmured as we approached the security checkpoint. If you don't want to. I need to, I said, surprising even myself. I need to see him realize this isn't going away. Inside the hallway, we didn't wait long. Brandon was escorted in by two guards, wrists cuffed, wearing a juvenile detention jumpsuit that hung too big on his narrow frame. For the first time since everything started, his cocky smirk was gone. But when his eyes found me, they hardened into something venomous. "Elara!" he shouted, jerking forward as far as the cuffs allowed. Tell them the truth." A guard pulled him back firmly. "Keep moving." "You did this to yourself," he yelled, voice cracking. "You're ruining my entire life." Noah stepped in front of me instinctively, jaw tight. Valerie glared daggers. I swallowed, steadied myself, and said quietly, but loud enough for him to hear, "I have 43 stitches that prove I didn't." His face contorted, rage twisting it into something unrecognizable. "You'll regret this," he spat, "when I get out." "Stop," Detective Ramirez said sharply as he appeared beside us, his badge glinting under the courthouse lights. "Is that a threat? Everyone heard that." Brandon stilled, eyes darting in panic. "I didn't mean it like that." "Save it," Ramirez snapped. "Everything you say in this building is recorded in someone's mind, if not on paper." Brandon was hauled away down the corridor. A moment later, my parents entered the hallway. Mom's face was pale, lips trembling. Philip's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might shatter. They walked right past me. Not a glance, not a word. It stung less than I expected, or maybe I was just too numb to feel the sting. Inside the courtroom, fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh, unforgiving brightness. Valerie and Noah sat behind me. Noah's hand hovered near my shoulder, not quite touching, but close enough to feel his warmth. That small, careful distance made something inside me ache. The judge entered. Court is now in session. Brandon's public defender, Mr. Castellano, approached first. He was polished, dark suit, glossy hair, a voice smooth as buttered glass. He began by painting me as unstable. "Your Honor, Miss Middleton has a documented history of therapy following her father's death. While we sympathize with her grief, we must consider how heightened emotional states can distort perception." I felt rage flare under my skin, small, sharp, searing. Valerie whispered from behind, "Unbelievable." Noah muttered under his breath, "That's disgusting." Castellano continued, "This tragic incident may indeed be a cry for support rather than a criminal act by Brandon Patterson. We request leniency and a focus on healing rather than punishment." Healing? My side still ached from where Brandon's knife had carved through me. But before fury could consume me, Assistant District Attorney Janet Morrison rose. She was compact, poised, and radiated calm authority. "Your Honor," she began, "we have video evidence of Mr. Patterson entering Miss Middleton's room on multiple occasions, stealing from her, reading her private journal, and standing over her while she slept. The footage is time-stamped and clear. We also have the knife recovered from the Patterson residence garbage bin. Mr. Patterson's fingerprints were found on the handle, no one else's. We have medical records indicating a wound that is physically impossible for Miss Middleton to inflict upon herself. We have testimonies from 3 classmates confirming Mr. Patterson bragged about drug theft, watching Miss Middleton sleep, and messing with her. We have Dr. Harper's professional notes documenting months of escalating fear and boundary violations." She turned, meeting my eyes briefly. Her gaze was steady, grounding. "The evidence speaks for itself." Then it was Brandon's turn. He shuffled nervously to the witness stand, the chains at his wrists clinking softly. Mr. Castellano coached him quietly, then stepped aside. Brandon cleared his throat, voice small. "I didn't mean to hurt her." A hush fell over the courtroom. "I was just trying to scare her," he continued, eyes darting to his father, then to my mother. "She kept accusing me of stuff, trying to get me in trouble. I wanted her to stop." Morrison stepped forward. "So you did stab her?" Brandon blinked rapidly, panic rising. It was just a warning. I didn't push the knife in deep. She's making it sound way worse than it was." The air left the room. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Philip stiffened, jaw flexing. Judge Brennan's expression went stone cold. Mr. Castellano looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Brandon tried again, desperation twisting his words. Dad always says she's dramatic." Morrison cut in sharply. "No further questions, Your Honor." For a moment, no one moved. The truth had been laid bare, ugly, undeniable, echoing through the courtroom like a dropped hammer. I breathed. For the first time in months, my lungs filled all the way. Because no matter what else happened, they couldn't twist this part. He had confessed. When the guards led Brandon back toward the bench, he passed near the gallery. For a second, his eyes locked with mine. Not angry, not triumphant. Terrified. It was the first time I saw him as a boy rather than a threat. A boy who'd been handed power without consequences and whose world crumbled the moment those consequences arrived. Mom finally looked at me. Her face wasn't cold. It wasn't indifferent. It was afraid, not for me, but of me, of the truth I represented. The hearing adjourned for the day. Outside in the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed. Judges walked past in robes. Lawyers muttered into phones. Valerie threw her arms around me. "Oh my God, Elle, he confessed. He actually confessed." I hugged her back as tightly as my stitches allowed. Noah stood a few feet away, watching me with a mixture of pride and something softer, heavier, deeper. When Valerie finally let go, he stepped forward. "You okay?" he asked gently. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I think I'm really going to be." Noah smiled and brushed his thumb along my cheek. Then, quietly, so only I could hear, "You deserve for the truth to win." For the first time since the knife, I believed him. 3 months passed between the preliminary hearing and the final sentencing. 3 months of physical therapy, sleepless nights, nightmares sharp enough to wake me gasping. 3 months of Valerie's mom insisting I eat more soup, Noah driving across town just to sit beside me while I did homework, Dr. Harper helping me stitch the pieces of my mind back together. 3 months of silence from my mother and Philip. Not apology, not remorse, silence. Sometimes silence is louder than screaming. The Jefferson County Courthouse felt different this time. Less like a looming fortress, more like a finish line I wasn't sure I had the strength to cross. Valerie squeezed my arm as we walked through security. "You ready?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm here." Noah arrived seconds later, his hand finding the small of my back. Warm, steady, reassuring, without being possessive. "You don't have to go in alone," he said. I nodded gratefully. Inside the courtroom, everything looked the same as before. The hard benches, the polished wood, the cold air conditioning that made the room feel like a meat locker. But the energy was different. People knew the truth now. Brandon was brought in wearing the same orange jumpsuit, but something about him had changed. His shoulders slumped. His face was gaunt. That arrogant smirk he always wore at school was gone, replaced by a hollow, exhausted stare. He looked like a boy who'd finally met the consequences he never believed in. Judge Brennan entered, her presence commanding enough to make the entire room fall silent. "Court is now in session," she said. "We are here for sentencing in the matter of the state versus Brandon Patterson, and in the related charges against Linda and Philip Patterson." My pulse thudded in my ears. Valerie reached between the seats and grabbed my hand. Judge Brennan turned first to Brandon. "Mr. Patterson, please rise." Brandon struggled to his feet. His eyes never once lifted to meet mine. "For the charge of assault with a deadly weapon," Judge Brennan said, her voice steady and sharp, "this court sentences you to remain in juvenile detention until you reach the age of 21. His mother let out a choked sob. Brandon closed his eyes, his chin trembling. "You will also complete 5 years of supervised probation following release," the judge continued. "Additionally, you are required to attend intensive counseling, anger management, and substance abuse programs." Then her voice hardened further. "And this court is issuing a permanent restraining order prohibiting you from having any contact, direct or indirect, with Miss Alara Middleton for the rest of your life." Brandon finally looked at me. Not with hatred, not with defiance. With fear. Raw, shaking fear. I didn't look away. Judge Brennan then turned to my mother and Philip. "Linda Patterson, Philip Patterson, please stand." They rose slowly, pale and visibly shaken. "For the charges of child endangerment and obstruction of justice," the judge said, "you are each sentenced to 18 months of supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory parenting education courses." My mother's hand flew to her chest as if the words physically struck her. "You will have no contact with Miss Middleton unless she explicitly initiates it." Mom gasped. Philip's jaw clenched so hard a muscle in his cheek twitched. "And this court orders you to pay all of Miss Middleton's medical expenses, therapy costs, and compensation for pain and suffering." Judge Brennan leaned forward slightly. "Let me be absolutely clear. Your laughter and dismissal of your daughter's assault was unconscionable. Your attempt to shift blame onto her, to protect a violent offender at her expense, is morally bankrupt. The harm you caused did not begin or end with that knife." My chest tightened, not with pain. With validation I never thought I'd hear. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. And just like that, it was over. Legally, at least. Emotionally, nothing ends that cleanly. In the marble hallway outside the courtroom, my mother approached me. Philip trailed behind her, looking a decade older. "Alara," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. Please, listen. I stiffened but didn't move away. We were wrong, she said, voice shaking. We see that now. We made terrible mistakes. We didn't understand. We didn't see clearly. Her words trembled, but they didn't touch me. Not anymore. Not after months of silence. Months of them choosing him. Months of lies. You didn't understand? I repeated, my own voice flat. Mom, you laughed. You laughed when the police questioned you about the night I almost died. She shook her head frantically. I thought Philip said, you've always been dramatic. Don't put this on him, I said sharply. You chose to believe him. You chose to believe Brandon. Every single time. Philip stepped forward, hands slightly raised. Alara, we're still family. We can fix this. We can... No, I cut in. We can't. You made your choice the night I showed you that video, and every day after. My mother's lip trembled. How can we make this right? Tell us what we have to do. You can't, I said softly. Some things don't get fixed. Some betrayals don't get forgiven. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. Later that night, we sat in our usual booth at the Riverside Diner. Me, Valerie, Noah, Detective Ramirez, Dr. Harper. The makeshift family that held me together when the one I was born into fell apart. To Alara, Ramirez said, raising a glass of water. One of the bravest young women I've ever worked with. I flushed. I don't feel brave, I admitted. Mostly I feel tired and broken in places. Dr. Harper smiled gently. Healing isn't straight, but you're already doing it. You chose truth over fear. That counts for something. Noah slid a plate of fries toward me. Also choosing diner food as your victory meal? Iconic. Valerie snorted. She deserves fries and pie and maybe the entire menu. We all laughed. Quietly at first, then louder. The kind of laughter that shakes something loose inside your chest. When the plates were mostly empty and the conversation drifted to lighter things, Detective Ramirez asked, Have you thought about what you want to study in college? I didn't hesitate. Criminal justice, I said. Maybe social work. I want to help people who feel like I did, like no one believes them. Noah smiled, eyes warm. You'd be incredible at that. I looked at all of them, really looked. Valerie's fierce loyalty. Noah's quiet protectiveness. Dr. Harper's steady guidance. Ramirez's unwavering belief in my story. This was family. Not the people who shared my DNA, but the people who chose me when everything fell apart. As we stepped outside, the night air cool against my skin, I realized something deep and quiet and true. They tried to break me to protect a lie, but I survived because I chose the truth. And I wasn't alone. I never had been, not really. Before we got into our cars, Noah gently touched my arm. Hey, he said softly. You did it. You made it through. Barely, I whispered. He shook his head. No, you're stronger than you think. The streetlight above us flickered. He looked at me with a softness that made my heart tighten. And for the first time in a long time, I believed I had a future worth stepping into. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty and your own safety? What would you have done in my shoes? If you're facing something painful, speak up. Keep speaking until someone listens, because someone will.